What's up, everybody? I know it's been a while. Trying to think here. It's been such a long time that I can't remember if I've screwed up my sound here. So bear with me here. Kind of making some tweaks. I don't know if it's going to help or make things worse. For those of you unfamiliar with this channel, I use OSB to get my screen recordings, and it's been a hot minute since I've made any uploads, and so I'm trying to remember exactly what all goes on in this stupid stuff. So I think I've adjusted some stuff since I've been messing around with this crap. Anyway, we'll just give it a shot and hope for the best. So I hope all of you guys are okay. Um, I wanted to give an update on the colony that I've created. I haven't stopped playing this stupid game, despite the fact that I haven't had an upload for months, I think. But I've come to some harsh realizations about this game, though. Now, to start with, before I even begin here, I need to be up front and just emphasize the fact that I'm dealing with 1.4. I haven't upgraded to 1.5 or any of the other stuff yet. And from what I understand, the 1.5 version introduces some multi-threading. It's not it's not very extensive, I think, if I remember right. But I haven't really done a lot of research on it because I mean I'm just a guy that plays this fucking game. I'm not out there reading white reading white papers on stuff that's being developed for this stuff. But from what little research I have done, I guess version 1.5 introduced some level of hyper-threading or multi-threading. I mean, for something related to how the colonists' animations are painted onto the landscape. If I'm wrong on that, definitely correct me. But the reason I'm bringing all this up is because I have a colony that's definitely considered late game. I'm up now to over 100 colonists, and I mean, when you see what I've done up to this point, you'll realize why I'm bringing all of this stuff up. Because they say sometimes out there in some of the forums and stuff that this game struggles with late game uh, progress. And boy, oh boy, do they say a lot when they say that. Because that is one hell of an understatement. And for whatever it's worth, man, my computer's pretty beefy. I've got like, I don't know fucking how much RAM I've got. 64 gigs, I think it is. Um, if you give me a second here, I'll step out of my Rimworld window here and look at my specs because I want to be truthful with you. I don't want to tell you any lies. And when I say it's beefy, I mean it was beefy at the time that I bought it, which has now I think been about 3 years ago, maybe four, somewhere around there. So by today's standard, it's not as beefy as it was. But I've got an AMD Ryzen 7. It's an 8 core. The graphics card has 12 gigs of RAM on it. It's I guess an NVIDIA GeForce RTX what is it 3080 Ti. 64 gigs of RAM, like I said. Trying to think if there's and the I believe Rimworld is firing off of a hard drive that's a solid state for whatever that's worth. It's a Samsung, I guess. Um, but with the colony that I have now, I don't know how many game years or days even that I've been playing it, but it's it's pretty it's pretty big now, and I'm playing on one of the large maps. It's not the largest, but it's definitely one of the larger ones. It's like I can't really remember how big it is, but it's like about 2 tiers bigger than the default. I think it is. And there's a lot to catch up on here, so I'm gonna kind of go over it with you. So to start with, let's see how many colonists we have to date. Well, okay, so it's 95. I thought I was over 100 because I thought at one point I had over 100, but I guess I don't. But I've got 95 colonists, and I think now I have about, I don't know how many mechs I've got, man, but I've got a shit ton. Um, Here's the thing, and just let me go over everything that I've done so far. So, like I said early on, I was going to create a perimeter defense system consisting of these uranium slug turrets around my circular compound here. Because in my mind, that gave me the most assurance for safety. And I told myself, after seeing some YouTube videos of others doing it online, that I would try to create a completely self sustaining colony through the use of boomalopes and fuel reactors. And as you can see, I've tried my best to do all of that. What I've come to the realization of, though, is that it is almost impossible to run an effective game by doing that because of the numerous designs that you have to kind of create as you progress through the game between things like different zones, different colonists, the number of boomalopes that you have to supply food for, energy requirements, because you got to remember, man, every GD vent, well, actually, I don't know if the vents, I guess the vents maybe don't have power requirements, which is actually kind of surprising now that I'm thinking about it. I thought they would, but now that I'm looking at it, I guess they don't. But every uranium slug turret, every HVAC thing, all the lights, all of this shit, man, it winds up consuming some level of power that you have to keep constantly compensating for. Now, I think the last time I let off or stopped uploading videos of my colony here, I don't think I was even remotely close to this level of progress. I think at the time I might have started developing one or two of these things and these wings. I don't think I considered doing all of this crap with these fuel reactors. I mean, there was a lot of stuff that I had yet to really kind of tackle, and I don't even think I created the outer ring in its entirety yet. Well, now that I've made it this far, I've learned a bunch of stuff about how this game operates. And one of the biggest flaws that this game has, and I'm a developer by trade for the most part, I think. I mean, I'm more of a web designer slash UI developer by trade, but I've done my fair share of programming too, because one of my disciplines is system to system integrations. So I know at least a little bit about things like programming efficiencies and things like that. And one thing I can tell you for a fact is that this game needs to be refactored immediately. I mean, it's got some sort of bottlenecks somewhere, because the more things like boomalopes you have and the more colonists you start dealing with, the more the dreaded tick calculations begin to creep up. And what I mean by that, if you're not very familiar with this game or what I mean by ticks, not that I'm necessarily completely familiar with it myself, but from what little research I've done about this game and how it operates later in the game, is that there's a certain number of ticks that they refer to that it basically does, like, I think it's what it like 60 ticks maybe every second or something like that, whereby during each tick, I guess from what little I understand, there's a bazillion different kinds of calculations that the game has to process for things like to give you an example here. Let's say Rachel here, and let's say she's a firefighter, or at least in the work thing. Let's assume that she's set to be a firefighter. Well, every tick, I guess Rachel has to scan the entire area to see if there's a fire. Okay. To give you another example, there are things like this. If you go into the bills, I think it is. Yeah. Okay. So material radiuses. What's the plural of radius? Is it radii? Anyway, for the systems in this game where you can do stuff with materials involving radiuses, I guess for every tick, what happens is that those facilities, they process the bill request according to the radius, and essentially does the same thing where it scans the entire, uh, planescape, if you will, planescape, your land area, to determine where those items are. So if I reduce this, you see that circle or that perimeter thing, that indicator. From what I understand, if you can reduce that for whatever facilities correspond to the radius thing, the more efficient your game will be able to process things per each tick. That's essentially what it boils down to. So I've had to kind of go through, and I think I don't know. There's some things where I've left the radius to its max for strategic reasons, but for other things like let me see here, maybe this might be one of them. Actually, you know what? It's these cooking stations, it's electric stoves. So if I go into here and look at the bills that I have, I've reduced the radius down to 16, and I've done that for all of the items in every single stupid stove that I have, and that took a long time to do. But I tried to do that because I thought to myself that if I do that, maybe the tick calculation sequence that I see happen every tick or whatever, maybe that would become more fluid. And the reason I'm talking about all this is because this late in the game, one thing I've noticed about everything is that I'll let everything run, and you see that little stutter right there? Moves, moves, pause, moves, pause, moves, pause. That stutter shit. If you As you play along in the game, you have to constantly reprioritize your strategy, your building, your work zones, all of the shit that you manage with the animals and everything. You've got to like somehow find ways to prioritize your playing around this game's deficiencies, where its efficiencies have been poorly designed. So in other words, it's like you've got to compensate for the game's lack of efficiency, basically, through your actual gameplay, which is fucking stupid, man. I mean, I'm sitting here judging the developers a lot, and I know that shit's easier said than done to do. So I don't really hold it against the developers or anything, because they've still developed one hell of a fun game, man. This game really is fun. If you haven't played it before, you should definitely give it a shot. But I'm hoping in the future, if they ever, like, either, I don't know, make a Rimworld 2, or maybe one day during a later upgrade or an update, they reconsider how things are done under the hood. I hope and pray that they'll find a way to make things more efficient, because that stutter shit, man, it doesn't really look like it's that big of a deal from that little split, 3 or 4 seconds I showed you just then. It doesn't look like it's that big of a deal, but man, whenever you're sitting there trying to manage all of this shit, dick around with all these fucking chem fuel things and growing basins, all this fucking shit that you're trying to build, I'm telling you, man, those little stutters, they roll down the hill, and by the time they crash into the tree, that's one hell of a snowball that you're talking about. I mean, it takes fucking forever to get through a season now because of that. And I kid you not, there's been times when I would literally go an entire year and not see a single uh, bulk trader, which is something else I was going to discuss too. Because one other thing that I've noticed is that as you progress in the game and get to something like this extent of gameplay, there's something weird going on in the logic of the game, where the bulk traders rarely come around. It's almost as if they come around less often the further along in the game you get. I don't know if that's by design or if that's another bug, but it really creates a situation that's difficult to kind of stomach as you're sitting here trying to deal with all this other stuff. Because what I wouldn't give, I mean, there's been multiple times where I would give anything just to have one of those fucking traders come around in orbit and give me about 200 or 300 chem fuel things, but they rarely come around now for some reason. I don't know why, but it's definitely got something to do, I think, with how this game's programmed. So anyway, there's that. Now, me being who I am and how neurotic I am about these kinds of things, one thing I've tried to do is play with it and just kind of roll with the punches as best as I can. Well, that tick crap really pisses me off, and it gets to a point where it almost makes a situation where I don't even want to play the game anymore. So I told myself, well, so what's a way that we might be able to kind of juggle with that shit? And as you can see over here, I've started revisiting my solar panels because I had a shit ton of solar panels basically all around the entire complex here, and this was early on in the game. I told myself that I was going to get rid of that shit so that I could go all in on the Boomalope stuff because I thought to myself, man, if I've got all of these number of Boomalopes, I won't need all that solar panel stuff, and I'll be 100% self-sufficient with a much more reliable power source, meaning the chem fuel generators. So I got rid of all those things, and it did put me all in on the Boomalopes, but because of the tick stuff and because of other things, it made me want to revisit installing solar panels again, because I figure if I can install solar panels basically all along the inside of this outer wall here, I'll be able to reduce the number of Boomalopes and in turn reduce the tick headaches that I'm currently experiencing. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now with this. And as you can see, I've kind of started on it. But now I'm running into a situation where I'm low on steel and by extension components. And because of that, I'm having a lot of my guys make forays into different parts of the world here. I'll show you here. I've got one group, I think, yeah, well, shit, are they coming back? I think they're coming back. Because I think if I remember right, I had a group. Oh yeah. Okay, now I'm remembering what's going on. So there was a component uh, deposit out here somewhere, and they're coming back. I don't know how many they wound up with, but um, I was gonna see if maybe I can tell you. So they managed to get some steel by this uh, what do you call it? Destructing or taking down some steel walls. I thought I had some components in there though. Oh, that shit. I think this actually might be a steel run. Well, in any event, they're coming back with some stuff that I'm going to wind up using. I think it was like a mechanator complex or something like that. And I'm currently in the process of getting another caravan loaded up because they're going to come out to this place, which is a lump of compacted steel that you can see here. And what I'm basically trying to do is I'm trying to get some steel so that I can start working on not only these solar panels, but also another issue that's cropped up with the temperature in these pins. Because one thing I've learned is that this apparently, and I'm just kind of assuming that this is the case, but apparently, whenever you have this number of, I guess, living creatures or something, each one of them increases the temperature by a certain margin. Because I wasn't normally having problems where this freaking pin out here was like 100 and some odd degrees, but now I am. And so, in order to try to combat against that, I want to try to put in an additional or a single air conditioner unit in here, but I can't do that because I can't do it yet because I don't have effing steel. So I mean, it's just one thing after another, and another thing too that I've learned is that the further along in the game you get, for some weird reason, it seems as if it's the chem fuel that the Boomalopes generates at a slower pace. And I did a little bit of research on this from the standpoint of general time progression in late games of Rimworld, and from what I understand, the more ticks you have to, or the more stuff that you have to process per tick, the longer the ticks take to essentially complete. And I think somehow that coincides with how the Boomalopes are generating their chem fuel. or the fullness, you know. And for whatever it's worth, I know also that there's something to be said about your workforce and whether or not they're able to keep up with the Boomalopes when it comes to, milking them. And I've tried to kind of compensate for that by creating, smart types of work zones and things and do all the stuff with paths and everything. And I'm staying ahead of it for the most part, but I'm currently working through a situation right now where I'm trying to find ways to juggle the dietary requirements of this amount of boomalopes because I had something going pretty well there for a while, but I didn't try to stop their breeding because I wanted to have as many boomalopes as I could because I think it was a season ago I was running into brownouts, and a lot of it was because I didn't have enough of these stupid reactor things or generators, and I wanted to build more of those, but I wasn't generating enough milk or chem fuel to be able to support those that I had. So I mean, I'm kind of going all over the place with this, man. But the point is that the further along in the game you get, uh, it's not just about how you manage stuff, man. There are some actual deficiencies with how this game handles the number of calculations that I guess it takes to be able to, manage a facility like this or some of the stuff that you guys have probably have developed yourselves. So if you're ever playing this game and you get to a certain extent and you notice this weird shit going on, like a person that's moving for a couple seconds and then stops and then moves and then stops and blah 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 like that. That's not just you. It's not something that's got something to do with something that you did wrong or anything. That really is the game that's beginning to fuck up and expose some of its underpinnings. I don't really know exactly what causes it, man. I guess there's just a shit ton of stuff that the CPU has to kind of crunch through whenever it's thinking about all the stuff that goes into making this game play the way that it does. But anyway, man, I just wanted to kind of give you an update on where I stand on this game. It's still an insanely fun game. I mean, you don't really build places like this unless you're having fun with it. I just wish it wouldn't screw up as much as it has been for me lately. So when the further along you get in this game, the more you have to prioritize trying to uh, compensate for the game's deficient design, and that's kind of where I am. So I don't know, man. I don't really know what else to say. I'll give you a quick rundown of what I'm planning on doing, though, assuming I don't lose patience with the whole pig thing. If I can keep playing this game, what I'm going to try to do is I've already started trying to relocate my mech rechargers and mech facilities into wings like this. I've got one right here, there, there, and there. And through time, I'll like deactivate or activate a couple in each of those wings, and then remove a couple over here, up to the point where I no longer have this stuff out here. And whenever I get rid of all this stuff, I'm gonna make two more of these growing basin facilities here, and then one right here. And what I would like to do is rely solely on rice to feed boomalopes with, because they do eat rice. And long term, I would like to basically do this up here in this wing and down here as well. Because then at that point, I would basically have 12 major rice production facilities in each north, south, east, west wings. I'm going to move this stuff, the reliquary stuff, and that kind of like shrine thing down here in this place, because right here I'm gonna eventually make a throne, and that's gonna be Gabs's throne, because she's kind of like our leader. And I'm at a point where she's about to become knighted, I think, but I haven't done it yet because I don't have a throne room. So that's kind of where what that's going to be right there. But I haven't created the type of throne that I want because I don't have enough gold. So whenever I do that, get that shit out of there. I'm going to redesign this wing up here to be nothing but rice, and the same for down here because I'm already able to compensate, I think, for the med bay that I have here because I've done the kind of the same thing with med bays. I've got one right here, here. This one up here is kind of flushed out, and one over here. And whenever I can get rid of that, redo all this stuff, and do something here with this long range mineral scanner, I'll free up that entire wing to basically do what I've done over here. But 95 colonists, man. 95 colonists, and it is not easy to manage all these damn people. I can't give you a rundown of everyone that I've kind of inducted into my group here since my last upload, but I'll try to give you some highlights. So, I can't remember if we had Nabs last time, which is this lady right here. But this woman is awesome. She's like a fucking sniper rifle or sniper on steroids. She's got a 20 on shooting. And the funny thing about her is that she's not, I don't think she comes from any kind of like military background or any kind of stuff like that. She's just kind of like a normal person, you know? I think at some point she was some sort of carpentry type of person. I can't even remember exactly where she came from. It might have been like a rescue mission or something like that, but she's turned out to be one of our most valuable colonists because she's the gal that I always wind up depending on whenever we need to do some major hunting. And boy, oh boy, does she fucking kick everyone's ass too, man. She never misses. She's literally a deadeye. But there's Nabs. A lot of the colonists have paired up. So I would say there's at least 45 to 50% of these people that are native born, you know, like children and stuff like that from the colonists that are now living here. I have a dirt mole, finally. Uh, Pyrophyte, I think is how you pronounce it. I haven't done anything crazy with his arms, although I do think that he has. Let me see here. I think he. Okay, never mind. I thought he might have some sort of tool arm or something like that, but I guess he's natural. But he's one of our main miners now. If you haven't played this game before, dirt moles, which is his species or whatever you want to call it, xenotype, they're kind of natural miners because I guess in their native lands they live underground or something like that. So whenever I have any kind of like mining mission that I need to send people out on, he's always involved. But I have two researchers now, Luna and Repka. They're basically the people that I'm always assigning to either the ground penetrating scanner or the long range scanner. And if there's actually any actual research needing to be done, it's usually one of them. And sometimes they also handle some of the stuff on the comms console. I have about maybe 6 cooks, maybe 7. I think, let me see if I can, from Kaufman all the way down, I think, to Rock. So how many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So actually I have 9 cooks. The reason I'm counting them is because one thing I've tried to do with my colonists is arrange them in such a way that it makes more sense to know what their disciplines are. Because this game, one bad thing about this game, especially with vanilla, if you don't have mods to compensate and all that kind of stuff, is that it makes it really, it's, in my opinion, it's unnecessarily difficult trying to arrange your colonists. You can't really group them up in certain ways that make visual sense or any kind of stuff like that. And whenever you're assigning things like this is a good example. So let's say you want to assign somebody to the bed, right? Well, in this interface, as you can see, everything is alphabetized. Okay, that's great. So you'll go then and want to assign somebody a meditation spot. Well, now suddenly nothing's alphabetized. That doesn't make sense to me. And that makes me sometimes accuse the developers of not thinking ahead, you know? Which clearly I guess they don't if things have that tick issue, but this is another example of some of their lackluster planning, I guess. I just don't understand that. I don't understand why you would make this some sort of randomization, but whenever you go into the bed to assign stuff, suddenly it's alphabetized. But anyway, up here in the colonist list, I've tried to create my own little system to where it makes some sense. And one way I've done that is by like rearranging people. Like if I click on Nico right here and right click and hold and drag, I can move people around. And so I've tried to kind of stack them in ways that make sense to me. And you know, from Kaufman down to Brock or whatever are my cooks. It'd be nice if you could like give them, you could actually assign them a group assignment with like some sort of different background color or something like that. But I have about maybe 2 or 3 different doctors now, with Alo being my main doctor. He's super high on medicine. He's a 15. Rimwold is another high level one. I think I've got another one around here too that's like maybe a 11 or 12 or something like that. But everyone else though, man, they're either broken up into the work zones that I've referred to as let's see here. I've got a main ag detail work zone, which is basically the entire map, literally. It's basically just the entire map. And then I have this thing called deep drill detail, which I use to path people to deep drills that have been placed over deposits. Like right here. Here's a gold deposit, so I would throw that into the deep drill work zone, you know, and then create logical paths to everything that they need to have access to. And the other main stuff that I've been trying to focus on is Boomalope detail, because as you can imagine, that's probably our biggest responsibility right now because of how so much depends on it. But basically, those are the 3 big zones. Now I've got other things like, you know, my kitchen detail, and I've got some stuff for the bots, like a chem fuel retrieval detail, which I use mostly for like lifter bots. They kind of go through, collect the chem fuel that's been milked, and then transfer it to things like the shelves, or maybe even doing the actual refueling themselves. But I've got that. I've got a this one's kind of a mixture, Boomalope Ag Bot Zone. And by the way, I'll preface all of this by saying that I'm sure there's better ways to do some of these zones than I have. But the Boomalope and Agbot thing, that's kind of like a mixture of the Boomalope and the Ag stuff. So if you've got those growing basins and these Boomalopes and some fields that need to be reseeded, that's what you would be assigned to basically. And then I've got this is another thing too that I'm trying to struggle with, or trying to deal with. Cleaner bot zones. Through time, my colonists kept getting food poisoning, and it was always because the areas where they were either eating food or grabbing food from or cooking it were always cluttered. And so I wound up designing a work zone that I gave to cleaner bots to always be on top of those areas. Now, excuse me. Right now it's a little dirty because I had a massive operation where the Boomalopes were all out here in what I call the main pin, because I try to do that because it frees up some of the stuff in here for things to be replanted and things like that. But I had to take them all back in because winter was coming. Excuse me again. And I guess that's where some of this is coming from. Well, actually, I took them in because they all ate all of the shrubbery and stuff that was out there. But anyway, I took them back in, and these pins in here, and that's the reason that's all dirty. But whenever it's whenever I'm not dealing with boomalope shit, literally and metaphorically, the cleaner bots are usually staying on top of the food areas. But that's also something I'm dealing with right now too, because of all the attention that I'm giving all these damn boomalopes. My food reserves are kind of kind of low right now, so I'm trying to send out hunters to restock some of that stuff. I mean, I think I'm going to be okay, you know. But it's just like I said earlier, man. Late game play with Rimworld, there is a shit ton of stuff that you've got to really be concerned with. And I think the developers, instead of trying to plan ahead for those things, they just said, "Fuck it, tell everyone to just go ahead and play on a small map and insert that final objective where you build that ship to get off world and in the game." What I'm hoping though is that in the future, the developers, if they ever do make a sequel or make another DLC or something like that, what they'll hopefully do is redesign some of the stuff under the covers and find ways to make this game a little more operationally efficient. Because that tick thing sucks. There's late game issues with bulk good traders that causes problems. The time it takes to get through seasons increases with the more stuff that you have to do per tick. And of course, with all of the colonists that you've got to wrangle with, that causes problems too in their own little ways. There's issues. There's late game issues with how boomalopes generate their milk fullness. I've noticed. Um, and like I said, why they haven't made a better UI for this game is what I'd say what I'm more floored by. Because it shouldn't be that difficult for them to do something where you can, I don't know, man, just make stuff have more visual real estate. Like how they've done this up here. This sucks. This is just stupid, man. You can't tell me that you can't come up with a better way than that. And then the whole thing where you've got to, you know, find somebody to assign for things like this, and nothing's alphabetized, but over here, whenever you assign somebody, it is. That's just inconsistent in my mind. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that might be worth discussing. Um, I guess there's not really. I mean, like I said, I've got tons of colonists now. Most of them have been native born, and literally every second somebody's either becoming unhinged or having some kind of breakdown of something. Right now we're kind of dealing with the situation where we've got those goddamn mechanite things, and we're kind of finally getting over them, I think. These fibrous mechanites, I've had that before a couple times, and it always takes a long time to get past. It rarely, from what I've seen, rarely ever gets to a point where anybody dies from it or anything like that, as long as you stay on top of everything with medicine. But it does cause problems because it causes a little bit of pain, which affects their moods. So, anyway, that's where I am with this, man. And it's a challenge every goddamn time I play this game. There's always something that's going on. One thing I'm also dealing with too, and this is the reason that I've built so many of these autocannons out here, these slug turrets. Since I have mechanoids, that means I'm generating now these damn toxic waste packs. And the way I've been dealing with that is I'll load them into these transport pods, and I'll shoot them all the way out to the edge, somewhere out in here, I think it is. And that pisses off this faction, I think it is. I don't know even how you pronounce that. Koosh, I guess. But I've had numerous drop raids from that faction because it keeps pissing them off whenever I pollute their land, I guess. So one thing I'm wanting to do is, if I ever reach to a point where I'm satisfied with our perimeter defense, I'm gonna summon one of those I don't even know how to pronounce this either. Let me show it to you. Some of you guys will probably know what I'm talking about. But for those of you that don't, Diabolist, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, Diabolus Threat, because if you summon that, which is basically summoning a bad guy type of mechanoid group, take them out, grab a specific part that they drop, and then research it. And then I think it's at that point you can finally develop those facilities that you can use to uh, uh, deconstruct these toxic waste packs without causing any problems with anybody. And ideally, what I'd like to have is about 6 of them in each wing, like 6 there, I don't know, 6 there, so forth and so on. So I'd have to summon a shit ton of those things, and I don't want to do that because, or not right now at least, because I'm just not anywhere near being satisfied with our defenses. But we're getting there. So anyway, I just wanted to give you a heads up on some of this, give you an idea of what kinds of things to expect if you're in the process of building your own colony and, you know, have plans to try to play it for a long time. Because if you get to a certain point where you're dealing with a pretty good number of colonists, you know, raising a bunch of boomalopes, all this stuff, you need to prepare yourself, because you're going to get to a point where you're going to start noticing that lag, that tick lag, whatever you want to call it. And the only thing that I can tell you is to just try to find little cute ways to compensate for it, because otherwise, if you don't try to pivot towards getting ahead of that somehow, it'll really cause you some problems, and it'll make the game not very fun to play. So anyway, I think that's going to be it for now, man. Gonna get off here and watch some shows, and then probably call it a night. So anyway, I hope you guys are okay, having a good time, safe, having good food. And I don't know when I'll upload again. I've got a lot of stuff going on in my life right now, between work and my house and just other stuff. It's kind of difficult sometimes to find the time to upload videos about things like this, but um, I was thinking at some point soon I was going to start a run with Skyrim, because I've been wanting to make some videos on that. I love that game. I'm kind of an RPG nut in general, so Skyrim is really right in my wheelhouse. But I thought that'd be kind of fun and a little bit of a change. And at some point in the future, I was thinking I was going to also do some sort of XCOM UFO defense stuff, the older version, not the new stuff, because I'm definitely old school whenever it comes to computer games. So anyway, we'll see what happens. Anyway, I think that's going to be it for now, and hope you guys enjoyed my update here. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to post them, and I will do my best to answer anything. So anyway, you guys have a good night, stay safe, and I will see you whenever I see you. Later.